Hello friends, my name is Mackenzie and you're watching my YouTube channel. Obviously, because you clicked on it. If you're new here, I really like tea, I like being comfy, and I'm really passionate about mental health. Okay, this is terrible lighting and awkward because I don't have my tripod. This is like late at night, but I just realized I didn't explain basically how I was doing these videos, and I didn't really do a good introduction for the second video because originally this was going to be one really long video of 16 mental health tips, but I ended up deciding to break it up into 2 parts because it was very lengthy. So in order to spread positivity and good mental health around the world, hopefully, I decided to break it up into 2 videos. This video is going to be tips 9 through 16, so I hope that they bring you some joy and peace and help you in some capacity. All right, well, let's get into it. My 9th tip is podcasts. So this is a tip for so many different reasons, but my main reason for bringing this up is because I found the world's most incredible podcast. I will link it on the screen, hopefully, if not in the description box. I will find a way. I'm such a big proponent for counseling, but I know that that is not a financially accessible thing for a lot of people. I am going to compare this podcast to counseling. It had that big of an impact on my life and my mental health. If you do nothing else, please just check it out. I would say to try out a couple episodes and see how you feel about it, because not every single episode is going to resonate as deeply with you, but it's a really well done podcast. She has one for literally every topic of mental health that you could possibly imagine. And every single episode, despite the topic, always follows a very similar outline, which I think is comforting to people with anxiety and depression. It's something that is reliable and consistent and stays the same, and I think that that's something that is really beautiful, especially when you're dealing with a mental health issue. So her podcast goes over the what, the why, and the how-tos / the tools. And I think that that is so cool, and she gives multiple in case one of them makes you feel silly or you just don't feel like you can do it. In most episodes, she gives at least 2 or 3 tools, at least. Normally there's a lot more. But yeah, I will link that. That podcast is super powerful. Other than that, I just think podcasts in general, giving you something to listen to, something to learn about, something to focus on and look forward to. I think that within itself is similar to finding a YouTube channel that gives you peace and clarity and happiness. Find a podcast that does that. So it doesn't have to be the one I just went into a big spiel about, but I do think that that's a very good one. So yeah, find a podcast that works for you. This next tip is tip number 10, and that is to learn something new. I think, again, confidence can stem from having purpose, and I think same with mental health. If we feel like we don't have purpose, then we get to a really low mental state. When we feel like we have something to offer to the world, we feel like we have a bigger purpose. The more we learn, the more we do have to offer. If you feel like, your strong suit isn't really intelligence, okay, that's totally fine. Again, start with where you're at, learn something new. Then you are smart, you are brilliant. Again, podcasts, YouTube channels, things like that. Just learn something new. You can buy books, go to a half-price bookstore. If you really like philosophy or gardening or anything like that, just buy some books and learn about it. But if you can contribute to a conversation now about gardening that you weren't able to before, how cool. So you have something new and amazing to offer to the world. It doesn't mean you need to be incredible at it. Learn something new is always a good one. Tip number 11, and that is to pet or cuddle your family pet. If you have a dog or a cat or a bunny, something fluffy that you can hug and pet and show affection to, I say do it. As always, I'm going to give an alternative for those of you who are not able to have a pet, whether that be for financial reasons or where you live or something like that. If you cannot have a fluffy animal, then my tip is similar but not. It's still a way to gain some purpose. It's not as much love or a connection, but it's kind of still that. And that is to get a fish or a plant, something that you can take care of, something that gives you, once again, purpose. Fish and plants are relatively cheap, I would say. You can find a fish for, I think they can be as cheap as like less than $1. I think the expensive part is finding a bowl or like a container for them and like fish food and stuff like that. But I think you can make that happen probably for less than, I'd say $20 to $50. I'll have to do my research to make sure I'm not like misinforming people, but I feel like for $20 to $50 to have something that you really like care for and can give you purpose, and like that's something that you are fighting to keep alive, I think that that's worth investing in, especially for mental health. Same with a plant. I mean, it's not as obviously a living thing, but it is still a living thing that relies on you to stay alive. I think that that's a good thing to invest in. I mean, I think it's a little bit more difficult to obviously kill a fish. I mean, all you gotta do is feed it and like clean out its like water tank and stuff. For some reason, plants are a little bit more finicky. You overwater it just a smidge and it's like, ah, and you're like, what? I'm like, I was just caring about you. So at least you can't overwater a fish. That's my 11th tip. So my 12th tip, this one is one that I'm going to give a lot of alternatives on, because I know the access to these things are limited depending on who you are, where you're at, things like that. So please stick with me if the first part of this tip does not pertain to you. There will be a part in here that pertains to you. So this tip number 12, is to have good friends or family or just people to talk to. I say this plural because when you're at a bad mental state, you don't want to be using just one singular person to dump all of your crap on. That is then bringing down that person with you. You need to give that person a little bit of time. Although they might care so deeply for you and they want to be there for you, they can't be there all the time. Kind of that saying, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. Again, just make sure you got a couple baskets to go to, okay? If you are someone who doesn't have multiple people to go to, I would suggest to find a therapist, counselor, psychiatrist, whatever you feel comfortable going to / calling them. Find one that fits for you. I think that that's the biggest hurdle in finding a counselor, is finding one that actually like makes you feel better and like is working with the way that you need to in order to heal. I guess my biggest tip with that one, if you can afford it, to be patient with finding a counselor that actually works for you. I hope you find one that works for you on your first try, but odds are you might not. So I would say just be patient with that and consistent with trying. Let's say you're like, Mackenzie, I don't have a single friend to go to. I don't have money to go to a counselor. Like literally, you're writing the story for why I have bad mental health. Okay, all right, I got you, okay? All right, so this next part in this umbrella, you don't have friends, you don't have money to go to a counselor. I would suggest investing in a notebook. That sounds cheesy. There's another tip even after this, okay? Same concept, another tip. So a notebook. I would suggest in there writing and venting just anything you need to get out. Like write as if you're writing to somebody imaginary. You could even say, dear counselor. You can make up a name for them, Counselor Smith. Okay, cool. You can even like, you can build a whole imaginary person. I'm not trying to like make this like a 5-year-old game by any means, but like sometimes it really helps if you create this image of another person being on the other end of it. Sometimes it can feel really silly when you're just writing to yourself. It can feel very diary-ish. So I'm just adding that in there so that it feels less like a diary and more like a letter to someone you might actually know. You can write to literally anyone if you really felt like it. Maybe you have a friend who passed away and that's a part of why your mental health is so bad, you're just really missing them. Write to them. Say, you know what, I'm going through a really rough time. Imagine them being on the other side of it. Buy a notebook, get your feelings out, vent. Even if you're writing the same thing every single day, who cares? You are getting those important emotions out that you need out of your system. Lastly, if you do not feel comfortable with writing in a notebook, you don't have friends, and you don't have access to a counselor, I'm going to give you this final tip. Me, okay? My email will hopefully pop up here. That's gonna be embarrassing if I can't figure that out. But if it's not there, it will be in the description bar. I mean it with my whole heart. My email is always open. I care about you deeply. I know I don't know you, but I just am so passionate about mental health. Anyone who's going through a rough time, my heart literally goes out to you. I care about you. I will be your friend. I will be your confidant, somebody who will listen and respond to you. If still none of those work for you, I totally understand. If that's just not something you feel comfortable with, totally fine, but just know that those options are there for you. Okay, so tip number 13. Anyways, this tip is to talk to a higher power that you believe in. If you are someone who does not believe in a higher power, that is totally valid, especially given the mental state that you're at. I've been there. I've been at a place where you're like, I can't believe that any higher power that I want to believe in wouldn't lead me down this path. And I totally understand that mentality. You can definitely skip this tip. That this is obviously one that might not work for you unless maybe there's someone who's passed and maybe you can use that as someone that you're talking to, hoping that they're like looking after you. So anything that in that capacity that you can relate to, use that. But if you can't, then just go on to the next tip. Still sending love and good vibes, and definitely understand where you're at. So that one's kind of self-explanatory. When you're at work for 8 hours or you're at school for 8 hours and you're just having a really, really rough time, it can help if you just like excuse yourself and you go to the bathroom and you're just like thinking to yourself as you're walking in there or something like that. You take a few moments and you're just like, insert higher power of your choosing. I just want you to know like I'm really struggling right now, and it would really mean a lot if you just help guide me and keep me going through this day, help me to calm down in the ways that I can, help me know that you're there watching over me and that everything's gonna be okay. Something along those lines. I mean, you can make the message however you want it, but sometimes just like taking that moment to really like believe that somebody out there is listening to you and seeing your hurt and struggle and like helping you through it can really, I don't know, it can make a big difference, I feel like. So that is tip number 13. Okay, so tip number 14 is kind of a mixing bowl. It's a couple of tips in one. The first tip in this umbrella tip is mainly for people with anxiety, but if you're someone who has anxiety and struggles with sleeping, I know that was something that was really difficult for me. For some reason, all the thoughts like to come at nighttime, and it can be really difficult to combat and just get a decent night's sleep. And then you're in this vicious cycle of like your mental health is bad because you're not getting enough sleep, and then you can't sleep because your mental health is bad, and then you're just doing the same thing all the time. So it's just a big, difficult situation to be in. This tip is to use melatonin. It is an over-the-counter herb, not even an herb. No, it is a naturally occurring chemical. It's not a chemical, it's not an herb. Dang it. It is a naturally occurring hormone. Is it a hormone? I don't know the right word for this. Anyways, melatonin is a naturally occurring substance in your brain. Your brain creates it and tells you that you're tired. So basically you can take this over the counter when your body isn't making enough of that chemical. So if your brain isn't creating enough because you're just like up with all of your thoughts, it's not creating enough of that melatonin, you can take those supplements about a half hour before you go to sleep, and then that can kind of help you get sleepy in a more natural way. It's not habit forming. I mean, if that still makes you weary because you don't like taking medications or vitamins or anything like that, totally fair, but I figured I would throw that one in there. Anyways, yeah, you take it about a half hour before you go to sleep, but I would just say in order for it to work, you have to really be trying to relax because it's not a medication and it's not going to just like knock you out of nowhere. You really do have to be in a state that tells your body, yes, I'm ready to accept this state of going to sleep. The next tip that I have is decaffeinated herbal teas. So I just feel like warm beverages are just like hugs in a cup, and that's so comforting, okay? On top of that, they literally make teas for sleeping. There's chamomile. I probably don't pronounce that properly. No one come at me. The one that I'm drinking right now is called Tension Tamer, and it actually contains an herb in it called catnip. Not the catnip as in like cat food. It's just an actual herb, and it is linked to just relaxation and helping you go to sleep. I can do a whole video on that as well, but I will link this tea in the description just because I feel like it's really helped me a lot. It's very relaxing, calming, helps me sleep some days. Tea within itself is calming. And then lastly, the last like part of this umbrella tip is to hydrate. So make sure you're drinking enough water. That seems self-explanatory. It seems like common sense, but everyone struggles to get enough water in their diet most of the time. We get busy, we forget about it. It's not it's not what's on our brains, you know, and that makes sense. But I think putting in that little bit of extra effort to make sure your body is hydrated, and I think hydration just goes a long way with mental health. It helps your organs function better, it helps your brain function better, it helps regulate your body temperature. There's so many things that staying hydrated helps. So that is that tip. So the 15th tip is to eat a healthy diet. Now this is going to mean something different for absolutely every person. I completely understand that. I'm not telling you to change your entire way of being, your entire lifestyle. again, you got to start with where you're at. Basically, what I would suggest is just whatever amount of fruits and veggies that you currently eat in your diet, just up it a little bit. I think that that is just a really good starting place to have a more balanced and more nutritious diet. Fruits and vegetables are where we get our micronutrients, which are the parts that can really help balance out hormones and make us feel better as humans. I can do a whole scientific study YouTube video on that within itself. A really easy and delicious way to get veggies into your diet is by buying frozen bags. If you are lazy like me, but you like to eat healthy like me, frozen veggies is where it's at. Just pop them in the microwave for whatever the package says. I also really like riced cauliflower. So obviously cauliflower is a really great veggie, better for you than rice. Same thing, you just microwave it, and then I make a really good stir fry, ends up like this. It's got broccoli, snap peas, rice cauliflower, water chestnuts, bell peppers, and carrots. And then I just add my favorite teriyaki sauce, and that's a healthy, easy meal. Eating a very bad diet can really slow us down. It can make us feel like crap and just tired all the time, and that alone can put us in a bad mental state where we'll end up thinking why am I feeling so lazy? Why am I so tired? Why am I this and that? And sometimes it really is just diet. I mean, I know that there's a lot of times where that's not the case, so I'm not saying that this is going to be the make or break thing for everybody, but I'm just saying is it can be something that can help boost your mental health if that is something that you feel like you can do right now. Again, start with where you're at. I've said that a lot this whole entire video, but I mean it. You got to start with where you're at. Okay, last tip coming up. I can't put 16 on my fingers, so yeah, I can't do it, so I'll just have to pop it up. But the 16th tip and the final tip is to work on your internal voice. You get nothing else from this video. I hope that you learn to start where you're at and you learn to work on your internal voice. When I speak about internal voice, it's what we say to ourselves inside our heads, or mutter under our breaths when nobody's listening or around. And the worst part is we never even quite realize that we're doing it. But I used to if I would drop something, because I'm pretty clumsy and stuff, I used to mutter under my breath. I'd be like, you're so stupid, or something not nice like that. And one day I was like, holy cow, I really wondered how destructive this is being to my mental health and my mental state. So what I did is every time that I realized I said something negative to myself, I would correct it. I would be like, no, you're not stupid, you didn't mean that. You're really smart, you're really good at math, you're really good at writing, and you're just really kind to all of your friends. I would go on a spiel in my head of I would tell myself, I would literally compliment the heck out of myself to counteract that negative thing I just told myself. And I mean, I would mean the nice things that I was saying to myself, but it's okay if you don't mean those nice things. You really just have to keep working on correcting yourself until you're at a better spot. And now I don't really say those negative things to myself, and if I do, I still do the same habit of just no, you're not, I didn't mean to say that, that just popped out of there, I don't know what that was. Yeah, just be really kind to yourself, be patient, really work on being your own best friend. I think a big turning point in my mental health stage was when I consider myself a very kind person, okay? And that's not me boosting myself up being I'm so kind, but that genuinely is a very large strength of mine. I have a lot of empathy and care for other people, genuinely. That's something I'm immensely passionate about. I literally cry thinking about other people frequently, and how much I care about them. And I had this massive epiphany. I'm like, oh my gosh, you pride yourself on being so kind and you're being so mean, so mean. And I think that was when I realized I'm a walking contradiction then at that point. I like to be a woman of my word, and I like to say that I'm kind, and I like to mean that, and I can't mean it if I'm not being kind to myself. Obviously that's not going to have the same impact on everybody, but yeah, that was a really big turning point for me. Obviously I would like to think most people in the world strive to be kind, so in that regard I hope that my story resonates with you, and that is your epiphany moment of oh my gosh, I can't be a kind person if I'm not being kind to myself. So I hope that you take that and you run with it and you learn to be the nicest person to yourself, and you you learn to be your best friend and really boost yourself in a time where you're kind of struggling. All right, guys, if you made it through this entire video, I want to say a massive thank you. I really genuinely hope that one or all of these tips work for you. I hope that they help you get to a better, happier, healthier version of yourself. I am sending you love and good vibes always. I appreciate every single one of you. If you feel like sending a little bit of love and good vibes back my way, please feel free to press the like button and the subscribe button so we can spend more time together. I might not always post mental health videos, but if they end up becoming popular and they actually help people, I will definitely continue to do this. This is something I am very passionate about. It is very important to me, and I think just the world in general right now, because we're in a global pandemic which causes a lot of emotions for many people. We're all losing a lot of things.